The month-long Clear the Air Challenge is happening now. Help drive down your miles by taking public transit, telework, or explore the city without a car. In fact, this Valentine's Day season, experience the heart of downtown at the Gallivan Center, where you'll find thousands of lights still on display and very unique art installations that originally premiered at Burning Man. On our episode this week, we hear from Salt Lake City Council Chair Amy Fowler about her new role, what it entails, and how residents can get involved with the city. As we celebrate Black History Month, not just this month, but all year long, check out our History Minute about Bruce Johnson, the first Black police officer in Salt Lake City. Let's get started with our legislative update and look back.
At its February 2nd meeting, the City Council received an update on $7.1 million in federal grants for pandemic relief, received updates on local emergencies including COVID-19, Salt Lakers experiencing homelessness, and racial equity in policing, were briefed on a number of rezonings across the city and heard a proposal to increase the number of green vehicles that qualify for free metered parking, and they also confirmed board appointments and took public comment on a variety of issues. To learn more, visit slc.gov/council.
Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall delivered her second State of the City address. Focused on progress, the mayor released plans to harness growth for the good of all residents, lead the way on environment through resilience and stewardship, create inclusive and equitable opportunities for all, and support city employees' physical, mental, and economic well-being. To learn more about the mayor's priorities for a stronger, more resilient, and equitable city, visit slc.gov/mayor. Residents of Salt Lake City, thank you for sharing your experiences and ideas for change at the first of many public listening sessions to improve racial equity in policing across the city. Mayor Erin Mendenhall, Police Chief Mike Brown, members of the City Council, and the Racial Equity in Policing Commission are listening. Help create a culture of change between communities of color and law enforcement. To get involved and weigh in, visit slcrepcommission.com. Text EQUITY to 801-575-7755 or call and leave a voice message at 801-708-0935. To help answer questions about the rise in unsheltered homelessness in Salt Lake City, representatives from the city, the county health department, and Volunteers of America, Utah held an online Q&A session. They spoke about current outreach efforts, public health concerns, the process of encampment abatements, and more. To stay connected, watch the presentation, and learn more about the city's homeless resources and services, visit slc.gov/hand. The new 300 West SLC street design is complete. The project team held a virtual open house to share new design features, what to expect for construction, and to answer your questions about the work on 300 West, from 900 South to 2100 South. Construction is expected to begin this spring. To check out an interactive at-a-glance look at the project and to learn more, visit 300westslc.com. Call 385-360-1313 or email 300west@slcgov.com. Salt Lake City has a 7-member city council that sets the overall policy direction for the city and helps decide where to focus resources by adopting annual budgets and ordinances. Newly elected City Council Chair Amy Fowler fills us in and shares details about her new role, what it entails, and how residents can weigh in and stay connected. Well, Council Chair Amy Fowler, congrats on your new role.
Why, thank you.
Welcome. First off, let's start with, what does the City Council do, and what is the role for the chair as well as the vice chair entail?
Okay, so the City Council is the body of our city that makes the policies and adopts the budget. Those are our two main focuses. Once we make those policies and adopt the budget, then the administration, or the mayor, she's the one that spends the money and implements the policies that the council has made. As for the chair and vice chair, We are the ones that set the agendas, that are there to support the other council members, are there to really kind of be the point person or point people for the media, for the mayor, for the legislature, always including, of course, our other council members, but just kind of someone to make sure that is at the helm leading a little bit. I still like to think that it's all very equal. We're all very equal, but just somebody to take on a little bit more of the responsibility so not everyone else has to.
Excellent. And so how does the council decide like what to focus on each year?
That's a really good question. Sometimes what we have to focus on is just thrown at us, as we've seen in 2020, between a pandemic, an earthquake, hurricane force winds, um, the economic downturn because of the pandemic. Those are all things that I don't think we get to choose to focus on. We just have to focus on. When we try to focus on things we want to focus on, it's really about looking at the city and what the needs of the city are. How do we help our communities experiencing homelessness? How do we make sure that our city is thriving and growing and that we're creating a place where people can live, work, and play and enjoy their life? That's really how we kind of get down to what the needs of our city is.
And 2020 was a quite the turbulent year. What are some of the things that the council is currently working on?
Right now, really what a lot of our focus is on police reform and homelessness. I think that those, as we saw in 2020, really shaped what our focus was going to be both last year and this year. As you're aware, we did create the Racial Equity in Policing Commission. And that really is something that is a priority for all of us council members. And as we heard last night with the state of the city, the mayor as well. We're dedicated to really looking at how we're policing and what the equity throughout our city is. And how do we increase the equity in all of our services for our residents in Salt Lake City?
Yes, and Amy, can you tell us how do residents help shape these priorities and weigh in?
I think residents are the key to shaping our priorities. It's from the residents that we hear what needs are. It's the phone calls, the emails, the texts, the Facebook messages that we as council members receive from our constituents, from our residents, that remind us of what those priorities are for. We're elected by our constituents, and it's important that we listen to them and represent the needs that they have.
And thanks to 2020, I think there were some new methods and forms of communication, right? Obviously, we weren't able to do the in-person meetings and things like that. So, what is the city council doing to improve public engagement and transparency? Are there things that you learned from 2020 that you see carrying forward into 2021 in terms of public engagement?
Yeah, definitely. There are some, at least through 2020, I always tried to look at, there has to be some silver linings throughout this pandemic. And I think one was really pushing us to be innovative and creative with technology. The technology is there and we needed to start using it and say, maybe we don't need those old ways. As much as I miss meeting in person and being able to see people's faces when they make comments with us, I think we've also really tried to create a way, all the different ways for people to interact with our local government. I have to commend our Salt Lake City Council staff. They work tirelessly in coming up with ways to make sure that they're engaging with our public, to make sure that people have access to us as council members and that residents' voices are being heard. They have tweaked and gone over and improved the process every single time that we have a council meeting. And I just cannot thank them enough for the outreach that they have done.
And the other question I have is so how can residents continue to stay engaged and stay connected? What are some ways that they can, keep up to date on what's happening here with the city?
All of us council members put out newsletters. And if you have email, you can join your district's email list. We do email blasts and our newsletters via email. We each send out once a year a written newsletter through the Public Utilities Bill. And of course, we have our Facebook page. We have Salt Lake City Council Facebook page. We have Salt Lake City TV. Yes. And, calls, texts, emails. We all try very hard to make sure that we are listening to our residents. We're all very busy as council members, but it is important to each of us that we're listening to residents and that their voices are heard. I think the other thing I would really want to suggest or want people to know is that each of our districts have community councils as well. And those community councils are fantastic. It's a great way for people to know not just what's happening in the city, but what's happening in their own community. And each of us council members go to our community meetings and kind of act as the liaison, talk about what's happening in the city level. And for me, it's a great way to remember what's going on in my own community. So I would encourage everyone to look at their community councils, maybe get involved in that way as well.
And for the residents that are listening right now, what would you like to tell them from the council? And what do we know and what are our plans for the future here in the city?
I want to improve the city. I want to protect the city. I want to make sure we're engaging each and every one of our residents. And I think sometimes people think that we're not listening, but I promise you we are. We are listening. And maybe things don't turn out exactly the way that people want or exactly the way that we plan or want them to go. But we are listening, and we do continue to listen, and we care. So keep in contact with us. Let us know what we can do better. And by golly, we will definitely try to do it.
Thank you, Council Chair Amy Fowler.
Thank you.
And now it's time for our History Minute.
Known as the first black police officer in Salt Lake City, R. Bruce Johnson was born in 1849 in Little Rock, Arkansas. In his 20s, he moved to New Orleans, where he ran a saloon and became a member of their police force. In 1891, he came to Salt Lake City with a letter of recommendation and an interest in politics. He was quickly scooped up by the Salt Lake City Police Department after his letter and political connections helped him get the job. Johnson didn't last long on the force, though. When Mayor Baskin took over in 1892, he cleaned house and fired the entire police force, claiming they were too far in the pocket of the church. Another black man took the token slot of the only one on the police force, Paul C. Howell. This became the tradition in the early days of the police department to keep a single black man on the force. Bruce Johnson stayed involved in local politics, despite significant attempts to suppress the votes of Johnson and those he represented, and he opened a saloon that he ran for more than a decade. But he left town in 1904. While drinking at the Red Onion Saloon on Regent Street, a white man called him a racial slur. Johnson shot him in the head. The wound only grazed the bigot's scalp, and Johnson offered to pay all of his medical expenses, but a trial was still held. Johnson got off lightly with no jail time and just a fine, but after the scandal, he moved further west to Los Angeles, where he spent the rest of his days.
That's it for another episode of Capital City News. As always, tune in to stay connected with us for the latest on city government news, info on COVID-19 updates and resources. And you can also visit us at slc.gov or follow us on social media at slc.gov on Facebook, Twitter, and Nextdoor. Thank you for watching. For SLC TV, I'm Poonam Kumar.